Okay, we're going to be dealing with that seventh chapter of Daniel. This is dealing with Daniel, his vision of four beasts. As we all know, first of all, Daniel, amongst those that were taken to Babylon, when Nebuchadnezzar came in and destroyed Judah, conquered Judah. And we know that through Judah's disobedience, that the Lord allowed them to be overtaken and overrun by the Babylonians. And Nebuchadnezzar was the king during that time. And we know that he took Daniel, and also we know that he took the Hebrew boys into captivity. Now, the time while they was in captivity, we know that Judah was destroyed, the temple was desecrated, and Daniel, he asked the Lord what was going to befall him and the Hebrews. Were they ever going to be able to go back to Judah? Was their temple ever going to be rebuilt? Were they ever going to be able to make it back home? Because now they are in captivity in Babylon, and we know that Nebuchadnezzar, he set up an image. And that image that he set up, he told them when they hear the music that they all were supposed to fall down, turn to the east, and worship the image. Now, we also, I think, in that second book of Daniel, it speaks about a vision, a dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. And Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel gave him the interpretation of that dream. And also, that second book and the seventh book sort of coincide together. So I'm going to read the seventh chapter. Then I'm going to explain precept to precept, verse to verse to verse. Let's get into the reading of it. It says, seventh chapter. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven stole up the great sea. And four great beasts came from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lamb, and had eagle wings. I beheld till the wings thereof was plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, the second, like a bear, and it was raised up itself, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in its mouth, and of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. And after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong, exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that was before it. And it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horn plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were many eyes, like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to that, says that first beast. It says, for the first was like a lion and had eagle wings, and I beheld to the wings thereof was plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and as a man's heart was given to it. The first probably 4 beasts. Now, the Lord allowed Daniel to have this vision, and as we know, as we go further into the book of Daniel, I think in chapter 9, how that the Prince of Persia held back, I think it was 21 days, the messenger from giving Daniel the interpretation of this vision. And we know the Prince of Persia, I guess anybody know who the Prince of Persia was, who that was, we view him as being Satan himself, held back on that interpretation of that vision. And it says, and the first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings, and I beheld to the wings thereof was plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon his feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to him. Now we know that first beast, that first kingdom was Babylon. And as we know that Nebuchadnezzar, we remember the story of Nebuchadnezzar, how that the Lord had Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, he thought he was all bag of chips plus, and how that the Lord took him and gave him a heart of a beast, and how that he ran through the wilderness, and how that he was covered as a beast. And this was that first beast, or that first kingdom. That kingdom itself was that kingdom that took down Judah. And as we all know, when they took down Judah, as you can remember, if you know the story, it tells the story how that the Babylonians, how that they teased the Hebrews. They told them, hey, sing them songs of Zion. You know, how you used to. Right. How they used to just sing about the goodness of the Lord. How the Lord was. And they had took Judah, burned the city, desecrated the temple. This is Nebuchadnezzar. He took the treasure out of the temple. We also know that he sacrificed swine, which meaning unclean animals on their altar. You know, most of the time when people say swine, what comes to mind? A pig, a hog. But a swine is any unclean animal. And as we know, the Lord had, when they came into the land of promise, the Lord told them there was certain food that they couldn't eat. Right. And it was down on them, couldn't eat, they weren't even supposed to touch. And this is considered as being unclean, and anything that's unclean in the Hebrew, their word for it is swine. So most of the time people say swine or pig, but anything that's unclean. And this is what Nebuchadnezzar did. They took swine, unclean animals, and what they did was they sacrificed it on their altar. They desecrated it. And they burned it down also. And this was the same thing that was did in Jerusalem. Solomon's temple. It was desecrated. unclean animals, the sacrifice. As we might say, swine, it was sacrificed. And as we know that,
Now Leviticus say anything divided a hoof,
yes,
such as, like that, anything that divided a hoof.
it's
It's
unclean.
unclean, you know.
Yes, and this is what happened. So the altar was desecrated, and we know that as the Lord, He has ordinances and rules and certain rules and regulations that He wanted His people to go by. We know that He gave this to Moses, and also it speaks of the first is like a lion. All this first beast is symbolic, is representing, is symbolic to Nebuchadnezzar. And it's how that kingdom, how that king, how that through Judah disobedience, how that the Lord, Jehovah God, allowed the enemies to overthrow them and to overtake them. Now, that was then. Now, the Lord gave Daniel the visions that Daniel had was not only at that time, but also continued to the future. Now, that second beast that he saw a second beast. And he says, and behold, another beast, a serpent, like a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth, and it in between its teeth. And they said unto it, thus arise and devour. Now we know Babylon, the Babylonians, that kingdom, they was mighty.
Yes.
Mighty. I mean, it was mighty during that time. It was mighty, but then as time grew, another kingdom came up that was stronger than they were. And that kingdom that came up, it was that Medo-Persian kingdom. And like man and land, what they did was, this was then a period of, I think it spoke of 40-some years, 77 years in the kingdom, a period of, so it was after the death of Nebuchadnezzar, and in a period of 43 years, it was approximately 43 years, another kingdom came up there. As we know, the Babylonians, they took Judah. We know that Meshach, Abednego, and Shadrach. We know that they all are in Babylon along with Daniel. And then this other kingdom, and another king, he come forth, and they subdue Babylon because they was great, mighty. And not only that, it was 2 kingdoms within a kingdom. There was Persia and Media. And within the, that was Persia and Media. Let me get it right first. That was Persia. And we know that king that was there, Persia, was Cyrus.
Yeah.
And we know that the Medes, this was 2 kingdoms, they was federated together. There was like 2 kingdoms, as we might say, as the United States and Canada. But they was together. And together what they did do was they conquered the Babylon. They came forth, they conquered Babylon. Not only did they conquer Babylon, but all that belonged to Babylon was theirs. And so it was their own. I mean, what they conquered. Well, we know back in those days, when a king, when he would conquer a king, his kingdom, what he had, his gold, his harem, his people, You know,
Sure.
they took it all. And this is what they did to the men, the strong men. They killed them because they wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be no revolt. You know, you're not going to come up. You're not going to. Now, I already know. Took over. Now, there's not going to be an uprising where you're thinking that you're going to take your kingdom back. So what I'm going to do is all them like Dick and Brown, you young and yeah, Minister Dunlap. Yes, I'm going to kill y'all off because I'm not going to go through that. Yes, ma'am.
So that's why David's captain killed his son. He was trying to take over.
Sure, because we want to make sure. Now, I'm going to make sure. Now, I've conquered you,
Right.
and I'm going to keep what I have. Because not only that, you got to remember, these kingdoms, when they were conquered, everything that Babylon had, and what they had, what the Ministries had, and what Persia had, and they had what Babylon had also. And so this made them great. Great with the earth. Great. When I say great, I mean great. It was a mighty kingdom. Now it speaks of that beast had 3 ribs in his mouth. Now Mendes, it was that kingdom that was weak. It was weak. But they yet still, they bound, they bond in with the Persian, and they conquered Babylon. Now, by me knowing that you're weak, Bishop and I, we conquered Churchill. And me myself, I go, hey, this is weak. I want all this for myself.
Yeah.
And so this speaks of those 3 ribs that they had in their mouth, just because the bishop, he was a little weak, and I knew it. And I knew that without him, I couldn't have took Babylon, but I know me, we can take him. And so this is what happened. This is what those 3 ribs represent. The weakness of Mendes. And so that king of Persia, he ruled. And those poor little Mendes, it was just like the Babylon. They came up under Persian rule. Now, Cyrus the Great, he was that king of Persia then. And as we know, you got to remember, these guys, they had close contact. See, Bishop, he, army, we're making, I'm talking about close contact. Close contact, we're talking about with a knife or a spear, with a helmet and just bashing. We're talking about blood. These guys, they fought. And not only that, we know that once you went into battle, you had scars. Scars. Meaning that what I took, I'm going to keep.
That's right.
And this was known throughout the world that, hey, this Persian Empire, they ruled. They ruled for approximately 200 years. But then, as we know, as time went by, this is still Daniel, his vision. Another kingdom came, and this was a Greek kingdom. And that Greek kingdom, they took that Persian kingdom. And
You know, it's like, remember the movie 300?
yes.
If y'all remember that movie 300, that was the Persian Empire.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Well, what they did, they conquered, and then all that they conquered, they had those people to service them. And that's what made them so great.
Yes. And it speaks of, it says, behold, another beast, a second one of these, 3 ribs in his mouth, and between his teeth of it, and it said, thus arise and devour. And after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon his back, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to him. Now, we know this Greek Empire. We looking at Alexander the Great. you know, and he
Yeah.
was a monster. When I say a monster, they killed. Not only did they kill women, children. They called him Alexander the Great. The reason he was called Alexander the Great because how that he went through Persia, through that empire. Remember, we're looking at the Medes, Babylon, Persia. He went through these countries so fast and so swift, and then how that he killed. And I guess in history, you remember Alexander the Great, even when Alexander is coming, and how that the people would actually flee. And not only that, even some of the Persian Persian army, after Alexander had came through and conquered, and how that they were bloodthirsty. And when you hear about things, I guess it was the same way as when the children of Israel, when it was going through the land, and how that it was spoken of how the children of Israel, God of the Israelites, how that everyone was so afraid of the children of Israel, of their God. But then this was no God, but a man and an army that they didn't care. They was ruthless. And this empire was a great empire, and Alexander, he just ran through it as if they was butter. As butter. Because the men that he had, and not only that, they just didn't care. And not only that, we have to also look that all this is prophecy. All these things are going to take place, were to take place. Now, remember the dream or the vision that Daniel had is in time vision. It went from Nebuchadnezzar to the Persian, to the Greek, and now that last beast that he saw was that Roman Empire. And it speaks of it like this. It says, after that I saw a night vision, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful, terrible, strong, exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake into pieces and stampled the residue with its feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that was before it. And it had 10 horns. That Roman Empire. The Romans. Rome, as we all know, how that we know that when Jesus was born, that Jerusalem at this time there was Nehemiah was allowed to go back and rebuild the temple. We know when Jesus was born that the Romans occupied. It was up under Roman authority. Rome was a great army. And Rome also, they conquered this Greek Empire. Now, all this is in prophecy. We know that the Inquisition, how that the Romans, how that they came and they took land. Either you give it up, chop your head off. It make no difference. Taxes, you did what they said. Not only that, that 400 acres that you have, Caesar says it belongs to him. The 200 acres that you have, and them 2 daughters, they belong to Caesar. Caesar didn't play. He did not play. We know that one thing that with that Roman Inquisition, that how that they would take, and if you didn't do what they ordered you to do, they will just kill you. Just as simple as that. Now, getting back to the vision.
But that Roman Inquisition, that was one of the most horrible things that ever happened on humanity. Because like I said, they took. And guess who was the head leader? Constantine.
Yes.
Constantine.
And not only that, you got to remember they did it all in the name of religious.
But see, there was the whole crucifix thing came from Constantine.
Right.
Constantine started the whole crucifix thing.
Yes.
Like the crucifix in that table. You know, and all the crucifix you see hanging around our necks and all that. All this Rome.
Yes.
And Constantine, he had it all up. And his vision was that while he was on the battlefield conquering, that he saw a crucifix. Yeah, in a vision, he saw a crucifix. And Rome, they've been using it ever since.
Yes, and not only that, he spoke of it as being holy.
Yeah.
And we know that they all this killing was supposed to be done in the name of the Lord, but we're going to say religion. And we know that through this religion, Rome, they took. Then Rome expanded not only all the way from Africa. We got, you remember, Greece, Asia Minor, Europe. Matter of fact, speaking of that Roman Empire, is so great and it's still great now. Is the Pope here today? Isn't it here? Didn't our president go, and the First Lady, go greet the Pope? And what did they say? Everybody wanted to see him so he could do what? Bless them? Oh, I'm going to be blessed by the Pope.
Yeah.
But that's how they were speaking about that today. They had the Indians that lived in California before Rome came over and took over California and took it over. And they came from overseas and came here to the United States because all of that in California belonged to Latinos, really. So they turned, they turned all of that to the United States and pushed all of those Latinos back. They wouldn't let them come over and work, but they had to go back over there at night until they built that. But they were talking about that today. One of the, he was an Indian that lived there, and he was speaking today saying that they were going to make the man that was a missionary that came from Europe over here to missionary them, and they were going to make him a saint. And they were really upset, saying that they killed all of our people, but all of us are still not dead. And this young man was speaking about that today, how they're going to make him a saint. He wasn't a saint. He killed us and he raped us and he took our country. And that's what they said today. This young man, he was an Indian or something. I don't know. That's all he said.
Well, we can look at those that the Catholic faith is throughout the world. Not only that, just because how that they conquered, and not only that, when they conquered a nation, automatically either that you're going to be
But it made you turn
Catholic
to
or
that.
you're going to die. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
that's why all the Latinos are Catholic.
What's the Pope guy? Isn't it kind of like they're making him an idol?
No, they're making him a god.
He's a god.
Yeah, like, that's what idol means.
A god.
Yeah, like idolizing.
He's been, matter of fact, did you hear what it said? Bless me. Bless me. Bless me.
So,
Bless me. Only Jesus blesses. Yes. So then not only that, we have to look at this nation, this Roman nation. Now this Roman nation, Rome itself, as we know, it's mysterious. I'm gonna put it that way. Not only that, Rome is coming back up. It's coming back up again. As we all know that this vision that Daniel seen, that he had, and spoke about the spoke. He says not only that, and Rome is going to come back in power one more time, and they're going to come back in power before Jesus Christ. And we know that Jesus Christ, he says he went to prepare a place for us where he were that we can be also. Knowing that Jesus, he's going to come back again and to rapture his people. Now, there's going to be a time of tribulation. There's going to be a time that when Rome, this Roman Empire, is going to spring back up again. You know, it's in prophecy. It's going to spring back up again. And we might be honestly truthful. It speaks of it. It speaks of it right here. Let me show you what it says. It says, after I saw the night vision, and behold, both beasts dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and devoured and it brake in pieces and stamped with residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts. There were before it, and it had 10 horns. It had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there was 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horns was eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. So this is speaking about as in these other 3 nations, or these other 3 kings that's going to rise within the earth. And it's going to be one.
Give us that little horn.
That little horn.
Yeah. Theologians believe that that little horn is coming out of Rome.
Matter of
That
fact,
speaks of the rise of the Roman Empire. In
yes.
school, that's what we were taught, that little horn, that's going to be the rise of the Roman Empire.
Yes.
And it's going to come.
And not only is that little horn, they're going to speak all words of blasphemy, and they're going to make wars even with the saints. We were speaking, he's going to make war with Israel, modern day Israel, and that they're going to, that this little horn is going to be all over Israel. As we know, right now, we look at, what is that, who said that they want to destroy Israel, blow them off of the face of the earth?
Oh, that's Iran. Persia.
Yes, Persia, yes. But this Roman Empire, this in prophecies, man, it says that, as I was studying, it says that this one book, it spoke of that Antichrist was going to come out of Rome. It was going to come out of Rome. It's somewhere in Rome. It's going to come out of Rome. And he's going to make war with Israel. And what he's going to do is he's going to make a covenant with them. The first half. He's going to make a covenant with them. And everything's going to be just so fine and dandy. Fine and dandy. But then in the second half, just a self.
Because Satan is always marking after God, this is a question. Do you think that, you know how God is going to have his martyrs to come back in the last days? With this Roman Empire coming back, Alexander the Great was such a horrible man. That spirit is coming back in the Roman Empire?
Well, how Scripture portrays it, as in that
Little horn?
this little horn is going to rise up. And we know that that little horn is going to be the Antichrist. And how that he's going to after the 3.5 weeks is over, how that he's going to set his image up in Israel. And when he set his image up in Israel, but before that happened, Israel is going to start back sacrificing, putting things on the altar.
But they haven't really stopped. They're still doing that.
I told you, they
Yeah.
really haven't
Yeah.
stopped doing
That's
that.
why they cannot accept Jesus
Right.
as God. Yeah,
Right,
because
they
you know,
still
remember the
sacrifice.
abomination of desolation speaks of
Uh-huh.
the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's still going on.
I researched that as far as Israel, as far as in their temples. They're not they're not sacrificing any animals. They're not doing that.
I think so.
Well,
I
they
think
told us
there
in
are
school
some
that
people
they're
that
still
are
doing
not
it.
still sacrificing.
Yeah, they're still sacrificing.
Far as in, they don't have for a temple, as in taking to the to their priests, going behind the holies of the holy and doing their sacrifices. No, let's say if anything in their homes, or because they're not doing that. This is why that before during the tribulation, before the Antichrist set his image up in Israel, they're going to start back. They're going to start back putting things on the altar. They're going to start back doing that. And then when he set his image up, he's going to take away the daily sacrifices for the he's going to take away their daily sacrifices when he set his image up. But right now, in Israel, do they go to a temple? And no, they don't. No, they don't. You know, like I thought that they was doing that, and no. But I know that they're going to.
That's what they told us in school. They told us in school that they are still doing it. But you got to remember now, see, you got different setups, different religions that's in the Jewish. Yeah, you know, just because, just like, okay, take Christianity, right? We got Protestant, Methodist, Baptist, Pentecost, see all of Christianity, but each one of us, we do our own thing.
Yes.
See, that's the same way it is in the Jewish society.
Yes. What I'm speaking of as far as is a temple, for as in, we know how the Solomon temple, and the temples, how that they were, yes, they don't do it that way. Now, they still might. You remember how Abraham and how Jacob, how that they had their altars and how that they sacrificed, how that Abraham said he can have an altar, maybe set them up an altar and sacrifice before it in their shrines or anything like that. They don't do that. But it's going to come a time that they're going to start it back.
Yeah.
They're going to start back doing that. And then this is when abomination of desolation is going to come forth again. The abomination of desolation has happened 3 times before. 3 times this has happened. The first time it happened is when Jerusalem was taken, and when Solomon's temple was desecrated, and when Israel was taken into captivity. Abomination of desolation, the daily sacrifices ceased the first time. The second time was Nebuchadnezzar, when he took Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar, he came into the temple and he desecrated it. They took him away, the daily sacrifices were stopped. That was the second time. The third time, when Jesus Christ himself was the last sacrifice. And the book of Hebrew was written for the Jews, for the Hebrews, for them to know that they no longer had to give a sacrifice, because Jesus was that final sacrifice. And then abomination of desolation stopped.
But you got to remember, the Jewish, they do not believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Even now they don't believe that. So if you don't believe it, how can you offer it?
Right.
See?
Yes. What the Hebrew speaks of. Bless you. Bless you. And Hebrews was ready to let the Jews know that they no longer had to. But then yet still, we know that there's still some that did do it. But it was in the temples, they didn't have to do it anymore because Jesus was that last sacrifice. And then this is when when no more sacrifices had to be given. That was the third time. And the fourth time is going to be when the Antichrist, when he set his image up in modern day Israel now, and when they're going to start back doing their sacrifices, he's going to stop that. And then when he stopped that, he's going to set his image up, and in order for you to buy, to sell, or whatever, you're going to have to take the mark. And if you don't take the mark, then off come your head. Now, and off come your head. So then, well, this is one thing that's good that we know. Then during that time, we know that the church has already been raptured. And if the church has been raptured, yes.
Okay. I had a question because I know I read in the Bible somewhere and it said that basically God will give some people to believe a lie. Is that the same thing, the same topic? He will give them up to believe a lie?
That's
Is
in
that what we're talking about?
Matthew.
Or is that about what's
God said turn them over.
To reprobate mind?
Yeah, but not on the reprobate mind, that's speaking of the homosexuals.
Yeah.
No, it didn't say reprobated mind.
Yeah,
So you would allow them to
Believe a lie.
yeah.
yeah. That is, Lord, it won't come to me.
In terms of the false prophets,
Yeah, but
you
it's
make them believe.
No, well, right now we
in the book of Thessalonians.
this is dealing with.
See, you make them believe a lie.
You know, this right here is dealing with the end. This is before the kingdom of God is set up in the earth.
So don't they have to believe a lie for them to follow this untruth? They're gonna have to fall.
Oh, no, they never was saved. They was, remember, they was left behind.
It says something about something wrong.
They was left behind.
I'm
You
trying
know
to
what
put it
scripture?
together, but it says something about something has to fall first, or something has to come. It's not going together right now. Before like the end, or something like before the Antichrist. I could be mixing it up, but I'm just trying to put it together.
Are you speaking about them believing in the Antichrist? Now, as far as the Antichrist, when he sets up his image in Israel and takes away the daily sacrifices, this is going to be during the time of tribulation. I think we spoke about there were two witnesses that's doing that. This is all this. Remember, all this is going to be happening in Israel. How that let me hold it off. Gotta bring me back to memory. I'm looking at go as in the time of tribulation. Now, when the Antichrist set up his image in Israel, and they take away the daily sacrifice, we know that in order for you to buy, sell, or to do what, you have to take the mark.
But to take away the daily sacrifice means that they're sacrificing. All right, so they're going to take away, and then he's going to set his image up, by which they're going to have to sacrifice him.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about 360. Okay? So that's the second half of the week.
Yes.
Okay? So,
What's this week thing we're talking about? Is it
70
gonna be
weeks,
like literally
70.
a week?
no. It's called the 70th week of Daniel.
Yes.
70th week of Daniel, which means that 70th week means 7 years of tribulation. That's what that's 7. So 3.5. That's the first half of the week.
Yes.
Then you got the second half of the week. That's the hard part.
Yes.
Okay, because the only thing he's going to do is set himself up, and people don't want to. With the Bible says he's even going to make fire come down from heaven and things. Who's not going to believe him?
Yeah.
If I walked up there and said, "Come down fire," and come down, he's going to believe me. So that's the second half of the week when all this is going to happen. Now, that's when he sets his image up. Okay, but like I was telling Manosi, you have different parts of the Jewish family. Not all of them believe the same. See, not all of them believe the same. So therefore, in order for him to set his image up, he's going to take down the sacrifice. See, so how can you take down the sacrifice if they're not sacrificing? See, so they're going to take down. Then that's when he put his image up, and then the whole world is going to have to consent to him being God.